hate Astrid's fiance. I know you should always respect your best friend's choices, but Adam made it difficult. His family was rich, and I mean rich. I'm talking weekend trips to the Hamptons, and casually talking about high-tier influencers like they were personal besties rich. Initially, I actually liked him. When Astrid first introduced the two of us, he seemed like a pretty chill guy. I think it was the way he spoke that enchanted me. Adam had a way with words, almost like what he was saying were song lyrics. He was well-spoken and talked like he'd been chewing on a thesaurus, but I liked that about him. Adam was different from the type of guys I met. All of Astrid's boyfriends have been questionable. Either want to be YouTubers or TikTokers who clearly only wanted her to show off. Or long-distance relationships which never worked out because they were the ones who grew paranoid about who she was seeing. Adam was the type of guy who talked her through panic attacks and helped her with breathing exercises and sprinted to a store to buy an umbrella when the sky started to darken. He was everything I wanted to be if I was brave enough to speak out. I won't go into the deep end of my feelings for my best friend. This post is not about us. It's about Adam and his family. What I will say is that I have known Astrid since we were both little kids. I met her during milk time in kindergarten when we both grabbed the last carton of milk, and the rest was history. Astrid wasn't just my best friend. She was my other half, who felt like a soulmate. I did have feelings that were more than that of a friend, and I was going to say something, eventually. But life gets in the way, you know? We both graduated and started at the same college. Astrid started seeing guys, while I struggled to push away and suppress my feelings for her. It became harder when she started getting serious with guys. Casual hookups turned into relationships that only lasted a few weeks or months, because it was always the guy who suddenly turned on her. She was always the metaphorical punching bag in these relationships, and I couldn't stand it. Astrid was too nice, too naive. I loved her, but part of me wanted to shake her and tell her that saying no was okay. She didn't have to go out with these guys just to make them happy. Then along came Adam, who swept her away, quite literally. The two of them met while we were studying in a Starbucks. I was trying to describe a TV show I had been watching, with wild hand movements like I was playing charades, which had sent her into fits of laughter, like she was choking on her coffee, which was making me laugh too. Those were the moments I treasured. Just the two of us hanging out and laughing over stupid shit. I don't know if it was my crazy hand movements or her hysterical laughter which attracted him, but before I knew what was happening, a guy from the table across from us, who I had caught peeking at us over his dog-eared copy of Oedipus Rex, was sliding his chair over with an award-winning grin, his eyes glued to my best friend. I didn't blame him. Astrid reminded me of sunlight. I don't think she was ever conventionally attractive. I just think I was in love with everything else. Her face was oddly shaped, and her eyes were a little too far apart. When Astrid smiled, her teeth were kinda crooked, and she had been complaining since middle school about her nose. But somehow I was smitten. It wasn't just me. Astrid was one of the most popular girls at school because she was just a nice person, learning every name she came across and never being fake, never talking behind anyone's back or bitching. I used to wonder if my best friend was even real. She lit up every room she was in with just a smile and a laugh, and somehow, just her presence made me feel good. In the beginning, I think that is what drew Adam in, like a moth to a flame. Astrid was beautiful to me, but I think it was her smile and the way her entire body vibrated with her laughter, which sealed the deal for him. Naturally, he invited us both for drinks, but spent the whole evening talking to Astrid while I sipped my Coke and scrolled through my phone. I was painfully aware I was a third wheel, though Astrid insisted on me staying so I could drive her back to our dorms. The two of them exchanged numbers, and then Adam was suddenly a daily presence in our lives. Not just hers, mine. I would wake up to him knocking on the door with coffee for the two of us, which was sweet, though he did get my order wrong several times. And then he would offer to take us to fancy restaurants. I will say this, Astrid had bad anxiety and problems with socializing, as well as sensory overload. So I promised to accompany her to these dates and made sure she was okay. I didn't sit at the table. It was more like I made myself comfortable with my laptop several tables behind and watched the magic happen. And magic did happen. It wasn't long before Adam was couch crashing in our tiny dorm room, and I was using noise-canceling headphones to block out the sounds of them getting to know each other. It was after several weeks of the two of them dating and Astrid falling head over heels with a guy that I started to notice cracks in his nice guy facade. It's not like I was actively looking for something to hate about Adam. I actually liked the guy. We bonded over our shared love of Twin Peaks and an obscure band I found on Spotify one night. And like me, he could recite the entirety of the Animaniacs' Countries of the World song. Adam was pretentious, but in a hot way, according to Astrid. I kinda agreed. Yes, he could tell me with a straight face about all these artsy movies and that they were revolutionary. And Midsummer was a spiritual experience for him. But he could also sit and watch a comedy movie with us and laugh like an idiot. The three of us began hanging out a lot, whether it was late nights playing games or on free days just walking about the city and grabbing food. It was fun. I liked his jokes and his sardonic attitude. I liked that he made Astrid smile. And she hadn't once needed my support in public places. Adam was always with her, holding her hand, talking about pretentious shit I couldn't really understand. But I liked his voice. He had a lot of stories about vacations he'd been on, and his time at boarding school. Adam was a good storyteller, and Astrid was always locked into a sort of trance, her eyes wide, lips slightly agape as he dramatically reenacted the time he had almost joined a boarding school cult. Now, I've said the thing I liked about him because he wasn't all that bad at the beginning of their relationship. But like I said, the more time he spent with us, practically shoving himself into our lives and demanding to be given attention, I started to see his act. Initially, it was just small things. I was broke for a while after losing my job, declining Astrid's invitation to a theater play after developing a sudden undying love for theater when Adam gave her an odd look when she said she didn't know what Les Miserables was. You can't afford $20? It didn't sound like he was intentionally being a dick. I figured he was just out of touch after finding out his family was insanely rich. I didn't really think much about it until I refused to buy a cocktail at a club, and again, he had given me that look. This time, he was fully looking down on me, instead of questioning why I was refusing to buy it. He reached into his wallet with an over-exaggerated sigh and pulled out a wad of cash before plucking out a $20 bill and slamming it down on the bar. Now I was drunk. Several strawberry daiquiris down, I had no interest in buying a cocktail that sounded like a euphemism. I would usually stay quiet, but at that point, I was pissed. So I made a point of sliding the money back to him, getting up, and pulling my best friend onto the dance floor. Adam joined after acting like a spoiled child and realized neither of us was going to buy into his shit, and we mostly forgot about it. But then that kind of shit kept happening and happening until he finally revealed his true colors and freaked out when a waiter seated us near other people. Adam said it was because of privacy, and yet had no problem when a B-list celebrity came to sit down. Astrid did yell at him and made a deal that he wasn't like that, and he pulled a face like a second grader, promising not to do it again, and then went on to throw money at a homeless person and record it for his Instagram. Again, he tried to justify it by saying he was giving to charity, which Astrid bought, to a degree. I stopped agreeing to hang out with him because every time we did, he would either go on an out-of-touch rant or be passive-aggressive to others. All with this handsome smile and quirk of an eyebrow, which was not cute in the slightest. I don't know why he thought he could win her over with that. At this point, I was so close to telling Astrid that he wasn't worth it, and was actually an entitled rich asshole. But I think I had already lost her at that point. There was no saving her. She was starstruck by his way of life, gushing to me about their spontaneous trips around the world, as well as Adam's family's multi-million-dollar mansion, which apparently had 3 swimming pools. I'm sure the glitz and glam were part of what was blinding her, but the guy himself was exactly what she wanted. Adam was funny and cute. When I tried to tell her he was bad news, those interventions turned into arguments, and unbelievably, she would call Adam to come and act as a peacemaker. So, in short, I didn't like him. I didn't like that he was fake and had already brainwashed my best friend with the promise of a life of luxury. It was on April Fool's Day 2020 when it got in the text I didn't think I would be getting for at least 10 years. We were 20 years old and the two of us had made a promise to each other that we would go traveling during our gap year. I thought it was an April Fool's, and I repeatedly asked her if she was playing some kind of sick joke. But no. Sent along with a message that just said, "We're getting married," was a photo that looked like it had just been taken off of an influencer's Instagram. Astrid standing under a perfect sunset in some unknown location, maybe Bali, engagement ring on her finger, her arms wrapped around a grinning Adam. When I didn't reply, or rather couldn't reply, knowing I was losing my best friend to someone who actively looked down on people, she sent me a following message asking if I would be her bridesmaid. The nail in the coffin was the date of the wedding, which was set for maybe 2 weeks later. Astrid had known Adam for maybe 5 months, and they were already getting married. I spent a while going over it in my head, weighing the pros and cons of attending a wedding where I knew absolutely no one, and that it would most likely be filled with Adam's family, who were apparently part of the 1%. I did want to make Astrid happy. The last thing I wanted was to walk away from a lifelong friendship over a guy. But this was Adam. Adam was the most out-of-touch person I'd ever met. Adam who snorted when I said I couldn't pay for my phone contract and then offered to pay the whole thing for me. These were not nice things. He knew exactly what he was doing, and that was putting me in my place and reminding me that I was lesser than him. He even did it with Astrid when they started dating, laughing when she mentioned her mom's house wasn't mortgaged, then asking if she was being serious. Not to mention, I had no idea what his family was like. Astrid said she loved all of them and had met them numerous times, but when I asked what they were like, she either changed the subject or smiled and said, "They're just nice. I love them." I did agree to go to the wedding. After a lot of thought, I came to the realization that I was being childish and she was my best friend. I didn't want things to move so fast, but of course, they did. 1 minute, the two of us were eating Thai food and watching trashy Netflix shows talking about the wedding playlist, and the next, Astrid was skipping class for sudden, unexpected trips to France, where her dress was being made and fitted by only the top designers, which Adam had mentioned only 1,000 fucking times. He made it his mission to tell me my dress would have to be store-bought from a boutique because his mom didn't know me well enough to include me in the fittings. Astrid, however, had called him out on it, and insisted on all of the bridesmaid dresses being from the boutique, for which he paid, obviously. I don't think there was ever a time when he let us pay for our own drinks or food. It pissed off Astrid at the start, though I think she got used to it. Wedding planning was something I had always dreamed of doing, especially for Astrid. I wanted to spend a whole night with her where it was just us, and she would give me a basic idea and theme of what she wanted, and I would make that happen. Lo and behold, I got a text from her saying I didn't need to do anything, that the wedding was already planned. I thought that was strange, but I didn't question it. Adam said he had everything under control, so I just smiled and nodded, and resisted the urge to punch him in the face. It was pastel themed. Astrid's dress was a beautiful shade of pink, like a darker coral, while bridesmaid dresses were pastel blue. I think Astrid was going for a fairy theme, or something close to it. When I arrived for the rehearsal dinner, the theme was already set up. I wasn't expecting the actual ceremony to be at Adam's house. I was actually wondering if he was going to announce that he'd bought Buckingham Palace, and then maybe even Hawaii, for a never-ending honeymoon. The house was exactly what I expected. A mansion with too many windows and doors, and a startling amount of unneeded swimming pools. The actual ceremony was outside, and once I jumped out of the Uber, my stomach swimming with nerves, I took a moment to take in what was in front of me. Astrid had chosen a night wedding because she wanted it to be moonlit. Magical. I never really understood her words until I saw the setup. Rows of pearly white benches, canopied by cherry blossom trees, strung with lights emitting a soft white glow. The benches themselves were tangled with wildflowers and greenery, vines and tendrils wrapped around the armrests. Entranced by the sight in front of me, I had a moment where I realized my best friend was going to walk down the aisle I was standing on and give herself to a man and a family I despised. I should have felt happy for her, but all I could really feel was frustration and a twist in my gut, which was definitely jealousy. Luckily, alcohol exists, and the rehearsal dinner wasn't as bad as I thought. I spent most of the night on the dance floor with Astrid, until Adam's mother, a witchy-like woman with a patient smile, pulled her away to go over last-minute preparations. So I retreated to the snacks table, which had to be the most obnoxious food possible. I didn't think it was possible to roast a full pig, but the sight of it sitting with an apple lodged in its mouth made me nauseous. I knew I was being unsociable, but the other guests made no effort to speak to me, and if they did, it was to look me up and down with a smile that didn't need words. "Why are you here?" their expressions screamed. They knew who Astrid was, squealing and hugging her like they had been best friends their entire lives. But when I tried to join in or offer my name, I was greeted with dead-eyed stares. These girls weren't even trying to be nice. They looked at me and scoffed, just like Adam. I guess half of the people our age were trust fund kids he had grown up with, his inner circle. At that point, I was close to leaving. The wedding was set for 11:45, and I was hoping to get back to my hotel room and psych myself up for what I was sure was going to be a night of hell. I was standing over the snack table choosing a strawberry cupcake when a voice sort of startled me. Coming from behind me, I wasn't expecting it, and especially when the majority of the party had already decided I didn't belong there. Before long, the wedding had finally arrived. The sky was perfect oblivion, which Astrid had hoped for, meaning a moonlit ceremony. And I was trying and failing to suppress the urge, one slightly on the tipsy side, to pull my best friend aside and demand that she call the whole thing off. Because it was stupid. It was fucking stupid. And old Astrid wouldn't have even liked it. She would have raised her eyebrows at everything being so perfectly placed, and the handwritten notes on each table. I refused to get ready with the other girls, after walking in to find one of them mocking my lisp. The dress was beautiful. I did a little squee moment in the mirror. I thought the flower crowns to go with the dresses for both bridesmaids and groomsmen would be kind of over the top. But I was wrong. I guess what I wasn't expecting was for the wedding to be spread out? Is that the right word? What I mean is, we didn't have to sit down. You could stand or sit wherever you liked. I had been dreading sitting on the benches, but it seemed they were reserved for Adam's inner family, while the rest of us just had to stand around. Another thing, I had been informed 5 minutes before stepping out of the fitting room that I wouldn't have to stand with the other bridesmaids. Again, it was an inner family type of thing, which I was happy about. After a while of trailing around Astrid, telling her how beautiful she looked, I pulled her into a hug, whispered good luck to her, and made my way to the food. 11:35. I glanced at my phone, noticing the mood around me had switched from girls dragging each other around for selfies and guys hyping themselves up to a more mellow murmur as the lights in the trees began to dim. I noticed the reflection of a half-crescent moon slowly bleeding from the clouds in a silver platter on the table. Adam and Astrid really must have timed it perfectly. Like the lights on the trees, the moon almost mimicked it. Not too bright, but ethereal when you truly looked at it. I was entranced by the moon's light, very slowly beginning to envelop the sky. I barely noticed a figure loom behind me. "Are you a mate?" It wasn't just the voice that surprised me. It was the accent. I had seen a lot of things at that party which could only be seen to be believed during my time stumbling around to find a bathroom. A guy snorting coke off a girl's stomach in the bathroom, and in one of many, many bedrooms, an orgy with a diamond-encrusted dildo. But a British guy wasn't it. The guy looked as uncomfortable as I felt, dressed in matching colors. Instead of a dress, a long-sleeved shirt, a shade lighter than what I was wearing, tight black pants, and a flower crown awkwardly perched on dark curls I knew had been tamed by fingers which weren't his. He looked around my age, maybe a little older. From the way he was gingerly holding his champagne glass and poking at shrimp tartare and violet-colored macarons, I could tell this guy wasn't part of Adam's inner circle or his family. I wasn't sure what to look at, the odd way he was trying to salute me with his drink, or the blonde girl hiding behind him trying to hide her smile behind her own glass. I didn't know what to say at first before the guy gestured to behind me where Astrid and Adam's mother were murmuring to each other. The ceremony was starting. Without thinking, I downed my glass of champagne, which was a sudden explosion of fizz in my mouth. "Astrid?" I spoke through a sour lemon face. Until then, I had been sipping in intervals because it lasted like rotten orange. "Yeah, I'm her friend." I briefly forgot my own name for a moment. "I'm Penny." The guy's lips quirked into a smile. "Penny." He mulled my name around his mouth. Kind of old-fashioned, but sure. His lips quirked. "Did that taste good?" "Yes," I said. Liar. When I didn't reply, he leaned against the table and then immediately sprung back when he realized tables like that weren't meant for casually leaning on. "Spencer," he said. "I went to boarding school with Adam." All around us, guests were starting to shush each other, but Spencer continued talking loudly. "Adam and I have known each other since we were little kiddos." "So, you're his friend?" "Friend?" Spencer pulled a face. "Not since we were 16. The asshole's mother got me kicked out of school because apparently I was a bad influence." He reached into his pocket and pulled something out, a white baggie. I glimpsed white powder and mentally added the guy to the list of people I never wanted to see again. And it turns out she was right. "That's sugar." The girl who had been standing behind him, practically bouncing up and down, finally strode forwards, flinging an arm around Spencer, who tried to inch away before she dragged him back, her smile widening into a grin. "Have you ever read TFIOS?" I blinked at her, suddenly wary of speaking too loudly. The moon was yet to fully come out in full form. I think that is what Astrid was waiting for. What? The fault in our stars, the girl said with an eye roll. She nudged the guy. That's Spencer in a nutshell. He's a walking John Green novel and he wants everyone to know it. When I frowned at her, she shrugged. The sugar's a metaphor, because of course it is. When Spencer sent me a panicked look, she rested her head on his shoulder. It's okay to grow up, you know, she teased. You can let go of this. She paused for effect before grabbing 2 macarons and stuffing them into her mouth. Phase. For a moment, I thought she was joking, before it dawned on me they were being completely serious. Rich kids. I wasn't joking, Spencer grumbled, but he did slip the sugar back into his pocket, his cheeks going a little pink. He shrugged, stepping away from the blonde. I noticed a certain vulnerability when he spoke about the 2 of them and a twitch in his lip. He was pissed. Adam's mom did get me kicked out of school because she thought I was the reason for his bad grades. I'm only here to make up the numbers. Or maybe part of Adam which hasn't been brainwashed by a psychotic family. I'm Evangeline. The girl thrust out her hand. She reminded me of the human version of a golden retriever, with blonde curls bouncing on her shoulders. Her dress looked perfect on her, and the flower crown was the icing on the cake. She kept playing with it, fixing it onto her curls. I also went to boarding school with Adam, and we actually dated a few times in junior year. The girl spoke straight expletives, but I liked her. She reminded me of Astrid. She bopped me on the head. I love your crown. Her smile radiated. You're Penny, right? You can call me Evelyn or Evie or even Evian. Mom calls me Evian and I'm like, no sweetie, it's Evangeline. But you can call me Evian if you want. This girl was speaking so fast I could barely keep up with her. She grabbed my hands and did a little dance, pulling me with her. Astrid told me so much about you. Like on our trip a few weeks ago, she told me you've been best friends your whole lives. I'm so jealous. You're like so cute. I love your dress. It's the exact same as yours, Spencer deadpanned. In response, she thwacked him. From the look on his face, which was barely phased, I could tell this kind of thing happened a lot between them. I could tell what it was after only knowing the 2 of them for barely 20 minutes. The way Evangeline looked at him with starry eyes, which definitely had been attached to him since the 2 of them and Adam were kids, while Spencer was oblivious, or maybe aware, and didn't have the same feelings. I did notice his gaze kept scanning the crowd for Adam, and then I wondered what relationships had happened between the 3. It was weird being around 3 kids who had clearly been close in the past and were now reduced to practical strangers at their best friend's wedding. However, I was intrigued by what Spencer meant when he referred to Adam's family as psychotic. Before I could speak up and snap him out of the trance he'd fallen into, his eyes suddenly on the sky, Evangeline whispered, It's starting. And I twisted around with the rest of the wedding party to see Astrid. I remember thinking it was magical how the moon illuminated her, turning her ethereal as she floated down the aisle. But then, I wasn't thinking of anything. I was only thinking of Astrid and how angelic she looked. I caught her radiating smile, and it hit me that I could let go of my hatred for Adam if it meant she was going to be happy. I promised her. Hours earlier, the 2 of us had sat together after crying and sharing memories of mock weddings we used to do as little kids. Before she turned to me and told me the best wedding gift I could ever give her was myself. Being there. And that was enough to swallow my pride and watch her join hands with the love of her life. When their vows were exchanged, the moon stayed in the sky like she was listening. The two of them said the most important part, "Till death do us part," before Astrid turned to me suddenly, her eyes glinting. "Right, Pen?" The wedding party's attention was suddenly on me, and something twisted in my gut. Evangeline, who was standing next to me, nudged me playfully. "Say yes." Yes? I said it more like a question, but I guess that was enough. I thought the odd intrusion was over before Adam, still holding Astrid's hand, nodded at Spencer. "Till death do us part, Spence." The guy looked startled for a moment, lifting a brow. He shot me a slightly panicked look, which meant I wasn't crazy, and this was definitely weird. I was pretty sure the bride and groom weren't supposed to rope other people into their vows. "Say it." Adam's voice was strangely cold, and the knot in my gut tightened. "Sure." Spencer smiled and nodded, though his voice was more of a sarcastic drawl. It wasn't until I was really drinking in my surroundings that I started to notice the moon's light was spread out unevenly. The bride and groom were illuminated as they should have been, since they were standing directly under the moon, but catching the reflection of her light in my glass, and then on silver platters, as well as the shadow behind Spencer's eye, I realized the three of us were glowing, like Astrid and Adam. Saluting the bride and groom, Spencer's fake smile splintered and made for a real one. "Till death do us part." I remember wondering why we were the sudden main attraction when something pricked in my gut. I thought it was my glass at first. Maybe I'd broken it? But looking down at myself, I wasn't holding a glass of champagne. I had a vivid memory of placing it on the table when the ceremony began. Slowly, my thoughts began to swirl as several things began to register in my head, including the growing red stain seeping through my dress. It wasn't a clean slice, but it definitely was a stab. I guess I had been too busy staring at Astrid and Adam, not the people around us wearing black, their faces covered in white masks. I didn't feel the pain at first, or I did, but it hasn't fully hit me yet. It had hit my body, however, when I felt myself slump. I didn't fall, not yet, but was able to slam my hand over the intense red coming through my dress. I think I screamed, or maybe I just made mouth noises. When I looked up, whoever had stabbed me was gone. I started to think I'd imagined it, when my eyes found Spencer, whose gaze was glued to me, frenzied eyes on the rapidly growing bloodstain just above my abdomen. Time seemed to slow down after that point. Two things elicited my fight or flight: a sudden shriek from the crowd, which was in Adam's family, a girl dropping dead followed by a guy, and then Spencer's eyes rolling into the back of his head, beads of red slipping from his mouth, which tried to speak, tried to say, "What the f-?" before something was slicing through the back of his skull. When his body hit the ground, I stumbled back, ready to run, ready to grab Astrid and run for my fucking life. Then I saw the blood spatters. Spencer's blood, all over a smiling Evie's face. I thought her mind was slow to come to terms with what was going on, but her smile seemed to grow. She took a dainty step away from Spencer's body, while the rest of the party, excluding the inner family, exploded into chaos around me. I don't know how they were dying. They were just dropping like flies. Bodies. So many of them. So many girls I'd mentally rolled my eyes at, and the guys with square jaws I didn't like at first glance. Evie stopped smiling when a masked figure stepped in front of her. I expected her to run like I was supposed to, but I couldn't stop looking at Spencer's body, lying in a rapidly growing pool of crimson, mixed with whatever was leaking out of his ears. Evie surprised me with a sudden shriek, her expression crumpling into confusion.
Wait, no.
She stumbled back with a laugh.
I'm on the list.
She kicked at Spencer's body.
As you can see, my family donated a hell of a lot of money for this.
She turned her nose up at him, her lips curving in disgust.
And like him, I deserve to be a spectator.
Adam surprised me with a laugh. It's amazing how you can forget your own life when the world is coming apart around you. Astrid was gone. Guests our own age were dropping dead. And Adam was smiling like a fucking psychopath.
Your parents are yet to tell you, but you're broke,
he said with a shrug.
Sorry, Evie.
Something in the girl's expression turned feral.
What? No, that's not right.
She clawed at her hair, stumbling back.
Wait!
Before she could speak, she was shot in the head. Just shot straight through her skull. When her body joined Spencer's, I remembered how to breathe. I started to back away, aware of random people in the wedding party, mainly young people, being killed. Slipping on pooling red drenched in moonlight, I made for the flowery arches, before something stepped on my dress. I screamed, ducking to try and wrench myself free.
Pen, it's me.
Astrid. Standing illuminated in white light, my best friend with wide eyes.
Are you okay?
She grabbed me when I dropped to my knees.
Am I okay?
I managed to choke out. And it became more of a hysterical laugh.
Am I okay?
Astrid wrapped her arms around me, and she smelled like flowers.
We're getting out of here,
she hissed out.
Right now. Right.
I groaned, biting against a cry. I had to staunch my wound as best as I could. Her eyes went to the gate ahead of us.
That's a mechanical lock, so we climb over, right?
Screaming from behind me. We didn't have time to think about it. She reached out for my hand, tugging me into a staggered run. I was the first one trying to scale the gate, planting one heeled foot on the fence and grasping above. When I was halfway up, I twisted around to see if she was following, when something cold and cruel sliced into my spine. I felt it cutting right through skin and bone, penetrating me. The shock of it was enough to send me backward, tumbling before my head hit the concrete with a meaty smack, stars dancing in my eyes. No, not stars. Astrid. Through feathered vision, I saw the two of them, their eloping hands, their kiss under a suddenly startlingly bright moon, as I slowly bled out. When they were pulling away, a darkness I had never seen before swirled in my best friend's eyes when she dropped down next to me. My blood was ruining her dress when she lifted me onto her lap, her warm hands sifting through my hair.
Isn't this amazing?
Astrid whispered, her voice drifting in and out. I was trying not to choke on my own blood, but her words stayed with me, cementing themselves into my mind.
My best friend, giving up her own life for me to be happy. You and me, Pen, joined by the moon herself, granting us her light and entangling our souls so we can be together forever.
3 years, 1,095.73 days, 1,000+ deaths later.
Pen, can you get up?
Astrid's voice was in my mind, and I wasn't sure how. I don't think I could. With my face pressed against wet grass, I instantly knew my injuries. Sprained wrist, a pretty bad stab wound on my leg.
Those words meant nothing to me. What I did wonder was why I was lying in the grass. Where was my bed? My body felt like it was twisted like a pretzel.
Pen!
The voice became a screech.
Get up! You have half a minute until respawn. Are you going to spend it waiting to die? Come on your feet.
What? Opening my eyes, I saw the sun poking through the trees. Trees, I thought dizzily. Where the fuck was I? Astrid? Her name slipped out of my mouth, and I blinked rapidly. It didn't make sense where I was, surrounded by trees that looked like they went on forever.
They're coming, Pen. Get up, now!
I did somehow, but the pain flattened me against the dirt, a cry carving out my lips. My feet were bare, dirt gritted between my toes. But her voice was right. I could hear them coming through the trees, branches snapping under my feet, which immediately sent me flying up despite my wounds. My mind knew what to do. Ripping off a strip of my dress, my hands trembled as I did my best to fashion out a bandage.
That's it,
Astrid's voice murmured. Her voice sounded wrong. Melodic. Sing-song.
What's going on?
I spoke to thin air, to her voice in my head.
Where am I?
A bad place, Astrid whispered. But don't worry, you're winning this time, I promise. I have $800 on you.
Winning?
I started to walk, stumbling over myself.
There's a river just down there,
she said. You can clean your wounds. I don't see anyone. I think they ran the other way.
Astrid?
I tripped over a rock. All around me, trees. I was in some kind of forest.
What the fuck is going on?
Just keep going, Pen.
I was at your wedding,
I whispered, my hands inching down my blood-spattered dress.
And you're getting close.
Killed me. The words wouldn't fully register in my head.
You killed me.
I could see the river which stretched into the sky. My steps quickened as I stumbled over myself to get to it. It wasn't until I was wading into the shallows did the memory finally come over me.
You fucking killed me, you psycho bitch.
I rolled up my dress to look at my stomach wound, but it was gone.
What did he do to you?
Adam, what did that bastard do to your head? My breath was strangled.
But if you killed me, how am I here? It's not bad.
Astrid was talking about the gaping wound on my leg. While my mind wasn't sure how I'd gotten it, my body knew I'd been stabbed by some asshole hunting me down. I'd run after him and he'd disappeared, only for me to be bonked on the head.
Do you remember when we tried dresses on for homecoming in junior year? And you said I looked fat?
I couldn't resist a laugh.
I said you didn't fit it, because you didn't. I never said you were fat. Your figure was better than mine. Well, right now, you look like shit.
Astrid giggled.
So I guess we're equal.
I slammed my hands into the filthy water.
Equal?
I shrieked.
Hey, you need to be quiet. Don't draw attention to yourself. Tell me what's going on.
I spat, plonking myself down on a rock and examining my wounds.
Why am I here?
Well, there are two groups. The ones who went feral and Lord of the Flies, and the ones who actually play the... She cut herself off.
2 o'clock, Pen.
I twisted around and she groaned.
No, don't move.
Remember in freshman year when Jake Hollister was totally checking you out, and you looked directly at him? Don't do that.
He wasn't looking at me.
I gritted out.
He was looking at you. They're armed, Pen. I'm going to need you to go slowly, okay? Armed? With what? Looks like a gun.
Oh, wait. Get down.
I did, throwing myself into the murky water. Not deep enough to drown in, but just enough to hide me. I could hear footsteps. They were slow and deliberate, crunching through pebbles before splashing into the shallows. The water was ice cold, a relief against my body. I held in a breath.
Don't move,
Astrid murmured in my head. I didn't, but still felt the sudden sleek metal of a gun slide under my chin, forcing my head up. Before I found myself face to face, staring down at the barrel, pointed between my eyes. Evangeline. The girl was in the tatters of her bridesmaid dress, barefoot, with a scratch down her face. Her finger was stable on the trigger. The flower crown was still perched on her head, though it no longer matched her wildly vacant eyes.
Wait!
Her body moved like a robot, reloading the gun and sticking it between my eyes.
Evangeline!
I said her name, and only her name, through a sob, before her mouth twisted into a smile, and she pulled the trigger, blowing my head off. I didn't feel my death, but I did feel an unearthly presence floating around in the nether, yanking me back. And for the 1,000th time, I could once again feel my body being slowly rewritten. Not long after that, I awoke, face down in the grass, the memory of the gun ricocheting in the girl's hands, sending me into shock.
You're so bad at this game, Pen. I'm bored.
Astrid's voice disappeared after that. I called out to her, but I was alone. Alone in my bridesmaid dress, still stained with blood. A bottle of water, a box of ammo, and a small handgun lay next to me. Slowly, I stood up, before something glistened in the distance. A wall. Sliced between the trees was a wall made of glass. Slowly, I made my way over to it. I saw Astrid, dressed in a red gown. She looked older, more mature. Astrid had grown up. I was still 20. She looked me directly in the eye before lifting something. A mic, her lips curving.
Thank you,
she said as my fingers slid across the barrier, becoming fists, rage boiling my blood. I slammed my hands into the glass, crying out for her. But her smile only widened when Adam joined her, pecking her on the cheek. This is the best wedding present you could have ever given us. Really, Pen. I am so fucking grateful. Astrid sipped champagne, and her eyes reminded me of Adam's. Your lives, she said. Every time you die, our marriage becomes that much more magical, and it's all thanks to you. Her smile became monstrous as a feral scream rang from my throat, and behind me, sudden war cries, bare feet slapping through the dirt, heading towards me like a pack of wild animals. A sharpened spear flew past me, hitting the tree behind me with a thunk. I twisted around to see the spear wielder, Spencer, still in his wedding getup, a flower crown sitting on his head, along with what was left of a human. No, animal skull. When his lips split into a manic grin, I started to run, stumbling over myself, while Astrid's voice rang in my head, a melodic murmur catapulting me further into trees. War cries coming closer. You're a great friend. Astrid, if you're reading this, I know you're coming to get me, but not before I get you. I don't care if you were under a spell. I don't care that your family is trying to hunt us down once again. I will get you, and I'll kill you again and again until you've given me every single life back that you took away, you psycho bitch.